AIPAC. I will not vote for a candidate that takes $1 from AIPAC.
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I haven't thought about AIPAC, and it's interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC in years, which is interesting.
Why?
Why did I say that? Not relevant to my day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which is just interesting.
Listen,
It's interesting you say that. JPAC perhaps more, but AIPAC less and less.
Okay, fair enough.
Which is just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
That it's just interesting as you bring up AIPAC that it hasn't been part of. I'm just reflecting quite openly and honestly. Hasn't been part of the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Hey, and welcome back to the Tungsten Wire. If you're new here, hit subscribe, drop a like, and head over to the tungstenwire.com and subscribe to the Substack if you would like. Today, in this video, we're going to be talking about this absolutely pathetic trend that is happening in the Democratic Party right now, and more precisely, the corporate neoliberal class of Democrats. These politicians are being confronted with two questions. Two that should be the easiest questions in the world to answer. Number one, have you taken AIPAC money? Are you going to continue taking AIPAC money? Number two, do you believe Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? And these aren't trick questions. This is not gotcha journalism. These are basic moral clarity questions coming from their own voters. Not the right, not the so-called extremists, that they call the protesters on campus. Nope, this is coming from their base. And like Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report recently said on MSNBC, the Democratic base is shifting towards the progressive left. And yet, what do we get from people like Cory and Gavin Newsom? Evasion, deflection, and what is essentially a masterclass in political gymnastics. Suddenly, they're all interested in nuance. Suddenly, genocide is somehow complicated. Now, let's be clear here. Being against genocide is not a purity test. It is the bare minimum requirement for being a functioning human being with a pulse and a conscience. Opposing genocide isn't and shouldn't be radical. It's not far left. It's not some internet purity contest. It's the baseline of humanity. So when politicians and pundits start whining that anti-genocide demands are a purity test, what they're really saying is empathy is politically inconvenient. Morality gets in the way of their donors, because that is all these people care about, the donor class. That's why someone like Hakeem Jeffries gives the most half-assed endorsement to Zohran Mamdani that you've ever seen. That is why someone like Chuck Schumer still hasn't endorsed the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City. And this is today's what? November 5th, 4th, November 3rd. Because of their corporate donors. Because the moment they admit what's happening in Gaza is a genocide, everything unravels for them. They'd have to admit the U.S. is funding it. They have to admit party leadership is enabling it. They have to acknowledge the chokehold AIPAC has on democratic politics. And they'd rather protect a check than protect human life, especially brown humans, who have been demonized for decades to the point that nobody cares. I mean, just earlier today on Twitter, I saw Azalea Banks talking about how Muslims should be sent to the gas chambers. In what world can you say that about any group of people? Right? Certain people you say that about, you get a knock on the door from the authorities. And I'm not saying that's wrong. What I'm saying is it's wrong that they're allowed to say that about a group of people at all. Anyways, back to the point. They've demonized brown people for decades to the point that nobody cares. So instead, they stall. They dodge. They hide behind calls for nuance. While children starve in entire neighborhoods and are turned to rubble with American, Canadian, British tax dollars. Neutrality in the face of genocide isn't nuance, it's complicity. Make no mistake. And that's the part they don't want to admit. The Democratic base has already moved on, and day by day is becoming more progressive. The voters see through the PR fluff and the shared valued speeches. People are done with leaders who treat empathy as a liability. Genocide is not a purity test; it's a human test. And far too many people in power are failing spectacularly. Anyways, this was just a rant into a camera. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe, like, comment. You know what it is. Anyways, have a wonderful day. Peace be upon you.